What are you doing at the moment? What's going on?
Well, at the moment, Robin, we've got a variety of equipment set out. We've got thermometers to see if there's any temperature fluctuation.
What would temperature fluctuation mean?
It's claimed in paranormal circumstances that temperatures people report.
All right then. Well, we've got Tonya inside. What is your verdict so far?
Well, I've the footage originally and found it very interesting, able to replicate, and therefore we're unable to authenticate.
Are you telling me it's not a ghost?
It's simply done by a piece of film or something clear, which is placed in front of the camera. The biggest giveaway for us initially was the counterflare, which was from the light source behind it, had to have been reflecting off something, a surface placed in front of the camera whilst filming, and that led us down the path of being able to reconstruct the footage.
People like you aren't helping my sideline of work as an exorcist whatsoever. I've got no exorcist work out of these guys. So what do you think, Sonia, when you've heard this then? What do you reckon?
That's fine. That's fine. I still believe. I mean, it was a young kid on a landing, messing with his phone. He was frightened.
I'm not very happy that I don't think it's real, but I still think that there's something here.
So the family still believe it's an apparition. The PIA believe it was a mark on a CD cover. But as Hamlet once said, there are more things in Solihull than dreamt of in your philosophy, Horatio. Was it Solihull? I can't remember. Was it heaven and earth? It's one or the other.
Oh, poor kid.
Well, that's what I think. Poor Reese. I think it may have been a trick of the light.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Big Metal Detecting radio and TV show for tonight's special. Now, it's only the one or two other specials that we've done before, including one of the Detectable a couple of weeks ago. My webcam wasn't right, now it is. And we've decided to do a second one. Now, tonight's one is a little bit going back in time for myself and for my guest host, Arron Weedall, back into the days that we used to practice paranormal investigation and research. And that was quite some time ago for me. You may have seen a clip at the start of something that I'd done quite a few years ago. There you go. Hopefully, all our issues are back to normal now. Luke's had to use his wife's Google Chromebook because his laptop decided to update just before the show. So we're not as fluid as we normally are. Good evening, Arron. How are you?
I'm good. I'm coming to you from the late 90s on this webcam. Look at the state of this.
Have you got a dial-up network with that as well?
Yeah. Terrible, isn't it? Look how grainy it is.
I'm sure he'll be all right. It'll be
all
fine.
Right. You don't want to see me in high definition anyway.
With the internet throughout the UK at the moment, Arron, I probably look the same, no doubt.
No, you look wonderful.
Good evening to everybody in the chat room already. A good friend of mine, Steve Yarwood, who I'll let you know a little bit about his first episode of something that he's created this week. I think it's this week anyway. Yes, Rob Random, I've shaved the head today. I dyed the beard purple as well, but it didn't take. Hello to everybody else in the chat room as well. All our regular listeners who are in there and one or two who haven't been on before. Jesus! Hope he saw that. He knows who he is. Anyway, Arron.
Yes.
Tell me about your time, because what people don't know is I knew you 10, 15 years ago, accidentally. Not directly, but accidentally. I used to co-edit a magazine, and we were sent books quite regularly from a company called Amberley Books. And one of them popped up, Haunted Chichester and Beyond, by a nice gentleman called Arron Weedall. So I don't know much about your dabblings in the paranormal, so tell me about it.
Okay, so my dabblings first started in 2004. I'd always had like a keen interest in the paranormal, but at that point, you know, when you're a kid, there's not a lot you can do about it. So I got to a certain age, and then there was things cropping up on TV, and I thought, you know, I want to pursue this now. So I contacted a local group that are down here on the south coast called COTC, and they said, yeah, we've got some hunts going on. Come along and see how you get on. And my first, check this out, my first proper paranormal investigation was at Mitchelham Priory. Of all places, a fantastic location. And I went along, met everybody, Stacey, Stuart, Adrian, everybody there, and did the investigation and was hooked. And that was 2004 when I first started paranormal investigations.
So what led to the book?
The book, well, from that, I started a website, and I made a note of everything that happened on each investigation. Photographs, changes in temperature, everything. I jotted everything down on the website and made case investigation notes and everything else. And then I thought there may be people interested in reading this. So I contacted a publisher that made books along that similar line, you know, haunted, whatever. And they said no, they didn't like it. But they were looking for somebody to write Haunted Chichester. Would I be interested? I said, yeah, all right, I'll do it for you. So that was it. They gave me a brief of what they want and left me to that, and I did it.
Marvellous. And sales-wise, was it, you know, well received? I know we did a good write-up for it at the magazine when I didn't know you. Probably still would if I did know you, but that's another matter. Did it go down well?
Yeah, it did all right. The initial first editions all sold, and then it went into second editions. I think all those have sold. So I don't know where they are at the moment with the print. But I have seen it in the local supermarkets every Halloween. They'll be in the little corner in the supermarkets, and also I went into Bognor, and I went into the discount bookshop, and there it was.
So how far away do you actually live from Chichester?
Well, it was. So I'm Littlehampton. So I'm just on the outskirts. You got Littlehampton, then you got Bognor, Selsey, and all that, and Chichester. So I could drive to the centre of Chichester in 25 minutes.
So it was perfect place for you to actually write about, somewhere that you know well.
Yeah, it was perfect because before the book, I'd been living in Sussex since 1990, and I came down here to work as a bus redcoat. And then after that, I ended up getting a job at the local radio station, Spirit FM. So, and I was there for a few years, so you get to know a few places and a few stories working at the radio station. And the radio station itself, actually, Spirit FM over at Duke's Court, that is haunted. We've seen something there one night. I'll tell you about that a bit later on if you like. But yeah, from there we did the book, and it was really enjoyed it.
I'm hoping that the book cover is actually on screen at the moment. I don't know if Luke's current system will allow it, but I have got it up on here and I am sharing the screen. So
hey,
there it was.
There it was gone.
So you've been involved in all manner of investigations, all manner of subjects. And now, obviously, metal detecting is your foremost hobby, other than, one other thing I may add, cosplay.
Yeah, I do a bit of that. Again, obviously, you can't be a paranormal investigator without having a keen interest in the film Ghostbusters. And I just got round to going to a Comic-Con one time and saw these guys and saw the proton packs and everything else, and yeah, they were all screen accurate, and I thought, I wonder if I could build one of those. So I did. Cost a fortune. And now I'm part of a group called Sussex Ghostbusters, and what we do is we go out to charity events. We have a stall, tombola sort of thing. We do a meet and greet. We walk around. We raise money for, I believe it is, St Barnabas and Children with Cancer.
Mm-hmm. Marvellous. Fantastic. Good effort. And obviously now, metal detecting as the paranormal stuff took a back seat.
It has. When I first started it, another thing that got me into it was the loss of a friend through a very, very silly illness that he could have been saved from had he have gone to the doctors. It was just bronchial pneumonia. If he'd have gone, they could have given him treatment and he'd have been here today, but he was too stubborn and wouldn't go. And it hit me really hard. He was a good friend. He was one of the first friends I had when I moved down to the South Coast. He sort of looked after me like an older brother sort of thing. So when he died, I just had this interest to try and find out if there was life after death, and see if I could prove to myself that there was. And it was that kind of encouraged me to do the paranormal investigation stuff, and go into some of the weirdest places, scariest places, just to try and see what was there and try and prove to myself there was life after death. Eventually, in the end, I did see something. It took 10 years, but I did see something.
Do you know, Arron, in 15 years myself of being involved in a subject, it took 13 years to actually witness something peculiar. And it wasn't just one thing, it was a multitude of things in one location. Interestingly, I made a TV series called Ghost Cases with a friend from Canada called Paul Kimball, who's a filmmaker. And he asked, could I organise some locations, which I did. And we ended up in Uttoxeter at a hotel called the White Hart Hotel. And it wasn't one thing. It was a multitude of things, and it's the only place I've ever been to in a wide and varied career that I can still sit down at. In fact, I've got the report, the full report documents here, and it's the only place I can't, or anybody else who has been involved, explain what happened at this particular place. It's so peculiar. There you go. 15 years, and that's all I have to show.
But you saw some pretty weird stuff, right?
I've been privy to some peculiar things, but most of them we've been able to explain or rationalise. people have all this scientific recording equipment, which they have absolutely no idea what they're actually doing with it. But if you use it properly, you can get, you can learn about natural things that have effects on people's physiology, or you can look at pharmaceuticals, you can look at people's illnesses that they have or they may not realise that they have. There's so many things that you can actually look at in the paranormal realm which can be explained if you do it properly. And the problem when I stopped about 7 years ago was nobody was doing it properly. They were all waving EMF meters about, going, oh my God, oh my God. Yeah, you produce EMF, so why are you waving it about? Stick it over there, leave it flower. So they've been schooled by Most Haunted. Let's face it, the world's biggest charlatan show. And I know that for a fact, but we'll rant about that another day.
I've just sent Luke a photo in chat of a show that I did called No County for Old Men, and it was the guys from the Fast Show. I think it was Simon Day and John Thompson, and they were doing a ghost hunt at the Mermaid Inn in Rye, and we were contacted to come along and do the investigation with them in this fantastic location, the Mermaid Inn. And we did. We popped along. We got to meet a couple of. So we did an investigation in this marvelous old pub, and we got to meet two guys from the Fast Show, which was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I've shot over a photo of that. Put it in the chat.
I can see it. I'll open it. Save Luke doing it.
Okay.
Let me just. Where do we share to? Share screen. I'll share that, Lucas. Let me know when it comes up. Oh, look, it's him out of Cold Feet.
There you go. Yeah, so it was Simon Day, John Thompson, and we got Ian at the back there, and we got Stuart as well, part of COTC. It was a brilliant night. It was good to meet them.
Fantastic.
And that went out on the History Channel.
Fantastic actor. I'm sorry. Digger Dawn is trying to get on, but she has a issue. Now, Dawn, if you are listening, which you should be, if you are trying to share it to Facebook yourself, don't bother. Just follow the link that I sent earlier, and that will bring you obviously into the back room. Otherwise, if it's to do with you doing it normally, I'll have to speak to you off air and give you the whys, what's, wherefores, and whatnot. So anyway, we do have another nice gentleman in the background at the moment who's coming on to join us for this evening, Mr. Julian Evan Hart of Treasure Hunting Magazine. Good evening, Julian. Here he is.
Yeah, I say good evening, everybody, and good evening to yourself, sir. Great to be involved.
More than welcome. It's fantastic to have you here. Can I just check with you, Luke, that Arron's still in the building?
Yes.
Yeah, Arron's there. There he is. He's still there. How's life, Jules?
Not so bad, not so bad. I'll say I was fascinated to see, first of all, a Saturday radio show, and secondly, on a subject which is quite dear to my heart. Like, I've always been intrigued and fascinated.
Jules, Sunday, mate.
Is it a Sunday? Oh, so, you know what? I have to apologise. That comes from working at home. What day is it? I have no idea. I have to ask Lisa. I said, is it Thursday today? I beg your pardon. Yeah, well, anyway. Well, hopefully there's some food in the future. We'll have a Saturday show. Yeah, Sunday. Jeez, Christ, where did that week go? Yes, a subject really that fascinates me. I've had quite a bit of experience through friends and some areas that broach into this of elements that science or logical reason can't explain. Therefore, one would say to me, Jules, are you a believer? Yeah, I am. partly because I just think some of the things I've experienced and some of the things people have told me, and I will tell you about these, they are intriguing. I've got a list I drafted out of these experiences, and they make my jaw drop even after 25 years. And I'd like, throughout the show, I'll reveal them all, and maybe there are some listeners who've had similar experiences. I'm sure there are. But,
if there are, if anybody does want to come on the show and tell us about their experiences, like you're going to, Jules, and like Digger Dawn's going to come on, please feel free to contact us via find myself or Luke on Facebook, Luke Higgins or Dave Sadler, or via the Big Metal Detecting Radio and TV show, and we will try and get you on as soon as we can. We'll send you the link to come on board. So, sorry, Jules, sorry for interrupting.
No, not at all, not at all. The whole paranormal element has intrigued me from what metal detectors refer to as the X factor. When you can be in the middle of a field, look at a white stone or something just says, go 10 foot or 10 steps forward, turn left, and you'll get hammered. And on the odd occasion, you do, or you get something, or something says, go and check over by that stone. You head towards the stone. I don't know why this happens, and you get a fibula brooch. And you sort of think, God, I wish I'd just told my mate over there about this. Sometimes I get experience of I'll get complete number plates come into my mind. And I only ever told somebody once, and then next minute the car drove by with the number plate. And I do this happens quite frequently to me, but I've always been sort of interested in this from, from a detecting point of view. Where you get a battlefield, I spend a lot of my time around Second World War airfields, particularly aircraft crash sites where I've had, or some of my colleagues have had these very strange experiences. And, I'm a believer. When I find a little Roman farmstead, there's a few grotty coins, cobbles, some broken tiles, some oysters, I always think to myself, this is the only evidence left of a family, maybe generations, who lived here, their loves, their anguishes, their misery, their pain. And there are people I've met who believe that those elements, once people pass on to the other side, do remain in the area or maybe in specific artifacts, which is something I will come on to with an intriguing case that happened to a friend of mine 20 years ago. I'll say I spend a lot of time around Second World War air crashes. And again, there is something to be said about maybe where young lives are taken away so quickly, so dramatically. Some of those people, might still be alive today. They didn't do all that living. I think there's a frustration and anger, sometimes a bit of a bitterness, a bewilderment, but I think it stays on the site. Not everyone is aware, but I've taken people to crash sites without telling them. And a couple of them have turned around and said, Jules, mate, don't know what about this is, but I need to get out of the area. He goes, nothing evil, he said, but it's just overwhelming and I can't deal with it. And I think there's something here, and this is what intrigues me. One particular instance I had a couple of years ago where two B-17 bombers collided over a village. I traced all crew families in America. I had some of them come and stay. Now, the first one was the grandson of the Waite gunner. Now, he came over to stay and have a look at the crash site, and he actually was into paranormal himself and said the reason he had come and traced me on the internet was because he had a dream that he was trapped in an aeroplane, gone to another, I might use the wrong words because I'm not experienced in it, sort of like psychoanalyst or whatever, he put him, hypnotised him and said, one of your relatives is coming through as being killed in the war. Anyway, he investigated it, found me, I took him there. And in that wood, much like Bergen-Belsen and Auschwitz, no birds had ever sung. I'd shot that wood, I'd walked that wood, been in there 40 years. No birds at the top end of that wood ever sung where those 9 young men were killed in the B-17. Now, I took the first relative, which was the grandson, into that wood. Nothing happened. I mean, he was quite emotional, as you can imagine. I showed him the spot. We came out of the wood and he turned around to me. And I will never forget, I was quite emotional having achieved such a thing, it was a great privilege. And he turned around and said, oh, well, you spent 40 years researching this and writing books about this one incident. And I looked at him, I said, I don't know. And he said, well, I'll tell you. He said, it's because then, 55 years ago, you died in this wood. And what can you say?
Yeah.
And I thought, you can't challenge that. And he said, I know you did. And that was my sort of really rock-fronted experience of something else. I mean, you know, I go to this bird singing, who came out of the wood. As soon as he said that, there was a rush of wind on a windless day, and everything that was in that wood burst into bird song. Now, for me, no, I don't buy it. Science can't explain that. There was something there. The wood sighed a sigh of relief or something, that somebody had come back to commemorate those young men, which, you know, an amazing experience. And I do believe that sites like this capture something. Some of the conceived things, I read an account the other day of a guy who was metal detecting a battlefield to the edges of the battlefield, and all the trees went wavery. He thought he was passing out. And then he looked under the trees and he could see soldiers there with arrows and heard speech and shouting and everything, smell the wood fire. And then all of a sudden the trees like went sort of stiff again and his visibility was perfect and it had gone. You know, a little mirror, a little tape recording that comes back from the past. I really don't know. Was it, you know, could it be a mind playing trick? Yeah, it certainly could. I'm not qualified to say that. But, you know, these things are the things that really do make you think. The other time I experienced something strange was when I was excavating at Heinkel 111. And in the middle of the field, with my mate, we were about 4 foot down this path. And all of a sudden there was another huge rush of wind through down, and a shadow passed over. We both instinctively ducked. And I got straight away, looked around, nothing. And I was so pleased because he turned around and said, Jules, what the F was that? And I just, it was like a jumbo jet. It was a big shadow, you know. And I thought, it was another sort of strange case. The one, sorry, do tell me, Dave, if I'm hogging the show, but the one that really gets to me is a friend of mine. We dug a Mosquito aircraft up 30 odd years ago. And my friend, we found personal belongings for the crew on that. And we were in process of tracing the crew, their family, to return them. In the meantime, my friend got up every night and he had a studio downstairs to do the research. And the first time he noticed, his briefcase had been taken off the floor, put on the desk, his file had been taken out, opened at the page of the crash and the photograph of the crew. Nothing to worry about first time, you know, too many tins of Fosters the night before, I must have left it. Anyway, it happened for about 8 days consecutively. And then he went down the pub and came back one evening, and his wife was really, really agitated. And she could take a lot. I mean, she was now a detective, so, you know, bless her, bit of a lady, puts up with a lot of stuff. And she turned around, she goes, right, she goes, what have you brought back to the flat? And he said, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? And she said, you've brought something back into this flat, haven't you? And he said, well, you know, I've got bits everywhere. And she goes, no, recently. And he said, well, you know, what brought this on? Like that, you know, you go down a pub with mates, have a good little time, and I get grief. And she said, I was just watching EastEnders. She said, and I had this feeling to look in the doorway into the room. And she thought, I'm not going to look in the doorway. And she fought it. And anyway, she looked in the doorway and said, this is why I'm paid off. She said, I've just seen the most handsome, blonde-haired RAF young lad looking at me from out of our doorway, Barry. And I'm sorry, but whatever you brought back. Anyway, long story short, about 2 weeks afterwards, everything had calmed down slightly in the house. The little baby's cot started clicking. And it was a sequence click, you know, tapping Morse code. And luckily, a lot of our friends were in the RAF, and one of Gary's friends was a cryptanalyst. So he invited him to come around the house because even Gary knew, you know, the wood wasn't creaking for some reason, it was clicking. And the guy turned around to him and said, you taking the mick, Gary? He said, because it's all wartime jargon. He said, approaching enemy coast, light flak, one or two fighters distant way. He said, he said, no, I'm not going to ask you that. He said, you couldn't be faking this. Anyway, the guy's wife found out about it. And the end result was they had to have a priest to come around to exercise. He said, nothing evil here at all. He said, you've disturbed a spirit, for want of a better word, and he's just curious. And the priest turned around to Gary and said, have you brought any personal belongings of the crew into the house? And he said, yeah. He said, I've got a wallet and some car keys, what was left of a checkbook stub or something, and a letter. He said, it was found on the crash, obviously. And the priest said, well, he said, you're going to have to return it to the crash site to calm things down. So anyway, in that meantime, Gary put it round his mother-in-law's just as a token of goodwill. But fortunately, found family relatives of that crew member and returned all the things. And after that, everything stopped in the house. It just went quiet. There were no further disturbances or sightings in the house. And that for me is one of the epitome ones. There was one other instance, which was particularly interesting, when friends of mine dug up a Dornier 17, and there was so much wreckage there that the bodies were uncovered as well. The coroner came, the police came, take them away, and they had to say to the farmer that they had something like 8 tons of wreckage. Would it be all right if we store this in the farmyard? And the farmer said, yeah, of course you can. And when my friend went back a week later, it's a really misty day, and all the girls started coming down from the stables and everything. And they flagged him down and said, oh, bloody hell, we thought you were already up at the farmyard. And my friend turned around and she said, we thought you'd taken it a bit far as well. And we said, well, what's happened? So, sorry, I didn't mean that. You really haven't upset anybody. And she said, well, I was mucking out this morning about 4 o'clock, so that, as was Susie, come across the courtyard, and on the wreckage were 4 young men, we assume in German uniform, because one had 9 cross around his neck, they said playing cards. And I thought, amazing, that could never have been, the description of the uniforms was absolutely spot on for Luftwaffe night operations in early 41. What can you say? It's just absolutely fascinating. But I don't know, what else have we got?
I tell you what, Jules, I mentioned it to you a while ago. Very peculiar, obviously. I've had a involvement in the paranormal and such like. But one of the other things I have been involved in, before I was involved in the paranormal, just before my mum passed away, she found a copy of a magazine in my dad's. So I was like, ooh, fantastic, I'll have a read of that. Now I'm sharing it as we speak, so you tell me when you see it. April 1978 edition of the Treasure Hunting magazine.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Can you see that? Fantastic.
Yeah.
What is that machine for a start?
I don't know. Actually, for the time, and my eyesight is pretty bad, but actually for the time, it doesn't look too bad. It doesn't appear to have a candy cane handle.
It's just like a stick with a circle on the bottom and a small remote in the reverse.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's 2 articles in it, and I opened it. This was my dad's, remember? Like, I was 4 at the time. That photograph I've showed you of myself was taken around the time that he must have bought this machine. But as you can see there, treasure hunting and the supernatural, and I've only just realised, advice for beginners, researching sites and studying ley lines. Now, I haven't finished sharing just yet. I've scanned the magazine. And there's the article by a lady called Kate Johnson, who must, looking at that, she must be about 30, so she must be at least 70 now, maybe 65 to 70. But it's a fantastic article, talking not dissimilarly to what you've self been saying about having intuition to go to a certain spot, the feeling of being watched, the feeling, intense feelings and such like. So it's a 2-page article with a nice little jokey bit in the bottom. I do like that, actually. There's one story by a guy called Barry Thompson, who kept having a reoccurring dream. And this led him to find something of consequence. I'm not quite sure where it was. Treasure reputed to lie in a wall, cavities. Anyway, as you can see, this is an article from 1978 in Treasure Hunting magazine. And I was fascinated because this was me dad's magazine. Absolutely brilliant. And it was just a case of coincidence again. I picked something up that my mum gives me that was my dad's, and it's got this information in it. Absolutely fascinating. And I've got a number of others as well, because somebody's given me a number of other machines. And it's absolutely all sorts of fantastic information. So if you go to a car boot sale and you see any old magazines, pick them up, because, I mean, I've got loads of other more modern treasure hunting magazines as well. But yeah, I'm just opening this here, Jules.
No, it's brilliant. There's nothing like a good reminisce, especially when it's relevant. You know, I mean, these things, they're not new issues. You know, people have known about these feelings, I think, in a wide context of life.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to see it, you know, from 40 years ago.
There's a coin shooter, Mark 7.
Oh, yeah. I think that was a white machine.
£81.70.
But, I mean, that was a huge amount of money. Absolutely huge. I mean, that was well over a week's wages.
Yeah, there's one better. A Super Pro. I can't see who that's made. AR Electronics. £254.
I mean,
back in 1978.
Oh, that's lovely. Wow. There are sadly a few little manufacturers who are now out of the loop. But, you know, I've been fascinated with this. I mean, there's a few other little things. You know, I did have a friend who, we used to do this Roman site frequently, and one day I found him having about 100 fags in the hedge. And I said, what's the matter? And he looked all agitated and goes, oh, nothing. And I thought, something's not right here. I pushed him, and he said, Jules, he said, I just found a Roman coin. He said, when I was digging it, he said, I just looked round, and he said, I saw a group of maybe 80 or 90 Roman soldiers, chest high, coming across the field. He said, only there for about 5 seconds. He said, but don't ever tell anyone about it. He said, if you do, he said, let nobody tell me I never saw it. He said, because I did. And coincidentally, he saw it 3 other times while I was there, but I didn't pick up on anything. But when we looked in a research book written by a group called the Viators in 1960, they had actually proposed that there was a small Roman road running across all these fields connecting 2 villas and a settlement. And the reason for that they were waist height, whatever, is because of the original sunken level of the road, which I was quite fascinated with. You know, I did on other strange events. We did many years ago a Duncan 88, and we found a crew on that and buried them all. And all the personal items, obviously, we always try to trace family back or put the items into museums. Temporarily, I had a silk handkerchief for about 2 weeks. Again, we were lucky at tracing family stuff in Germany, and I had that in the house for 2 weeks, and I had bloke's initials on it. And my wife then had to add that. And she said that something or someone kept touching her on the shoulder as she was watching telly, and this thing was like on the bookshelf ready. And again, another strange incident, something disturbed, something curious. Soon as the handkerchief was sent to Germany, nothing again. It's like, I do think that sometimes you get things, even artifacts, you know, the site may be, I don't know whether you'd say infested, but absorbed with strange energies from death and passing over. Sometimes artifacts in association with those sites, you can take the curiosity and that feeling home. But not everybody can pick up on it. You know, it's a very strange thing with battlefields and places where, you know, people did commit their lives and they left something behind. You know, it's an emotion. When you get an eyewitness back on the site, of course, that emotion is reality. they experienced it, they saw it. But there's something remains there. You hear people saying, I've been to a battlefield, or you go somewhere, it's a very concentrated, somewhere like Auschwitz, where these things happen, and there is most definite something left remaining there from, horrendous experience or, the loss of life. And that's always curious me, as can, most of us plod along through life. Maybe, I don't know, maybe to see these things and experience them is a long lost gift that everybody had thousands and thousands of years ago. Arguably, did we communicate with telekinesis and across countries without even the need to speak? There are theories of thought on this. And maybe it's just the odd resurgence amongst us of a long lost skill. Maybe there is something. A bit weird, I know, strange guess time now, but I suppose when I think about it last year,
we actually, just to interject a minute, we actually produced an article by an archaeologist called Alison Smith, who's a friend of mine, last year. And it's called Have Experiential or Phenomenological Approaches to the Landscape and Architecture Helped Us Understand the Significance of Monuments in the Neolithic. And it actually goes into depth about what you're saying now, about did olden day man have better understanding and links with everything that goes on, or what we experiencing now, it's been drowned out of us because we've got telly, we've got computers, we've got radio. Are we less tuned to everything now than they were then?
If there was only one or two reports of these, use whatever word you like, spooky, elemental, ghostly, whatever. If there were one or two, we could probably gang up a society and ridicule. There are far too many catalogued instances, even those sisters who woke up one night and heard a battle, and it went on for 2 weeks every night, and they wrote the times, the sounds down, and they lived where the D-Day invasion had taken place. And somebody actually dissected their notes and said, absolute spot on. There would have been an aircraft flying over at this time. The guns were from the ship out in the channel, and everything was time-related and in absolute perfection. And they both lived there during the invasion, and they said, but they hadn't made any notes at opposite time. Arguably, one might suggest they did. But there's been too many of these things. I've had good personal friends. There's no value to lying or fibbing. There's a bit of a nervousness sometimes saying, but one of the most remarkable ones I used to know, a military policeman, and he was a digger like myself of aircraft, and he was doing a junk of 88 on a hillside. I'd seen come down in the forest during the war. The forest had thinned out quite extensively in the 50-odd 60 years. He got a feeling that he'd been watched, and his dog was going mental. And he dug down about 2 foot, came across a crumpled iron cross, and thought, interesting. A few other engine components and bits and bobs. Anyway, he looked through the trees, and there's a guy watching him. And he thought, well, what I'm doing is pretty strange. I'm digging a big hole in the middle of the wood. Got permission to do it, but locals were about, there's me digging a hole in the wood. Wish he'd come over and say, you digging German up, or whatever. Anyway, this went on, mate was there for a couple of hours digging, and his dog just wouldn't settle. Hackles up, going ballistic, whining, everything. And it, mate was good enough to ignore the dog and just say, tied it to a tree, just here, and carried on digging. Anyway, after about 2 hours, he looked through the trees, and you see the bloke, he's trying to look past the tree branches and get a thing. And I'll never forget when he told me this. And he said, he said, I was that peed off. He said, I thought, mate, come over, we'll have a can of Kestrel or something, whatever. But don't just lurk, because it's a bit creepy. Anyway, he got his field binoculars out and thought, I'm going to have a look at him, and then we'll go have another chat. And he said, the first problem I spotted when I looked at the bloke, he said, I hadn't noticed that he was about 100 metres away through the trees, sort of thing, but it was quite sparse, but still. He said, were that his feet were 2 foot off the ground. He said, I'm a military man. He said, not much buggers me about. He said, but my hackles went up. He said, and I was mesmerised. He said, and as I slowly sort of took the scene in, he's in full Luftwaffe uniform, and he was just like watching me gently through the trees as if, I was part of a wildlife scene. And he was sort of, his head was going like that, pondering, what's that bloke over there disturbing me for? And, and this was like a military policeman. So, he would never have subjected himself to, ridicule, anything like that. And again, he was one of those strong enough to say, and I really don't care who takes the mickey. He said, but I saw it. He said, was it real? I don't know. I really don't know. He said, but I put the binoculars down. He said, and I gave myself 2 minutes, and I picked them back up, and I looked through the gate, and he was still there.
Do you know, Jules, you've got a book in you there, mate.
Well, it's one of those things, I've done the books on digs and aviation, never ever touched on the paranormal element. And it has always intrigued me. I do put features into the magazine when I get them of these people. I've had a couple in the last few years of hearing cannon fire and musket volleys and charging and feeling the vibration of heavy horses going by where there are no horses and battles have taken place. So I always put them in the magazine because they are valid historical records. Whether people want to ridicule, that's not the issue. This guy has taken time to write in about something he experienced. He's not questioning whether it took place. To him, it did. Under what scenarios, I don't know. I've always been that freelance and that accommodating that, strange experiences. Yeah, providing it's not fictional and somebody's purely invented it as like a ghost story. That's it. But, I will always publish these things to people, because I like to think it's a space piece for people who have these experiences. And part of metal detecting.
I've got a book in you anyway, definitely. I'm just going to jump over to Arron. Arron's got to leave us at 9 o'clock. Arron, what do you make of the tales that we're listening to?
Yeah, I mean, they sound the same sort of thing as you get at a normal haunting, at a location. It's very reminiscent to an incident I've had myself. I went to a place in Surrey called Brooklands Motor Museum, a massive banked racetrack from the early 1900s, and we were there wandering about. We were on the members' bridge at the far end. Now it's all bricked up. There's nothing there. You can't get in. But I took a wander down just to have a little look around. We were all chatting. We were all relaxed. And then I heard a voice in my head say, "Who are you? What are you doing here? Don't pretend you can't hear me, because I know you can." The thing is, it wasn't my voice. When you're stood in the supermarket queue and you're thinking, this is a 10 items only thing, and he's got more than 10 items. It wasn't that. It was somebody else's voice that I heard. And I came back across the bridge, saw the psychic that was with us, Sandy, and I didn't give her any details. I said, just go to the far end of that bridge. Tell me what you pick up. She went over. She tuned in, whatever she did. Came walking back to me. She said, I've picked up on a large man over there. Seems quite angry. Wants to know why we're here. And, that was me then. It was, squeaky bum time. It was really bizarre. And it's the same sort of thing that you're experiencing, Jules, or that people that you've spoken to experience.
It's disturbance, isn't it? It's a disturbance, curiosity factor. What are you doing here? And you can imagine them all lined up going, they're back again. What are they doing with it? And I firmly believe, almost from a joking element, the spirit world is, it sometimes does have a little laugh at our expense. You can imagine them all like saying, "Look, he's 4 foot off that Roman horde, but he's not going to get it today. Not going to get it today." I love that sort of thing because I think it's almost like you form a bond with those people, a long lost, I don't know, communications level. That's my often. I really don't know, but I am a believer in it. Too much had happened for me not to be. I would be denying logic, in my opinion, if I said that these things are rubbish. Too many of my associates, and the things I'm involved with, aircraft recovery, Roman villas, and everything else is connecting with the past. And sometimes I think we disturb the past, and it's curious as for why you do that. You know, and I've never had what I regard as an evil presence. I have on many occasions experienced that I'm definitely being watched, and there's nobody there. I know that I'm being watched. You know, it's one of those experiences that, you know, absolutely fascinating. And to have it verified by an expert like yourself, yeah, I know I'm onto something now.
Yeah, very strange, very strange.
Certainly is. And there's a lot of stories. I mean, we've got stories to go through throughout the rest of the show from people who've wrote on the Big Metal Detecting radio and TV show Facebook group, the image that I put on a couple of days ago. We've obviously got Digger Dawn to come on shortly. She's going to be discussing one of her experiences. And we've got I've got one off Scott DeBay, who emailed it to me directly, and Alison Smith to go through later as well. And Scott's actually got video footage with his experience, himself and Kimmy's experience. So we've got some video footage to look at in a little while as well. One thing I forgot to say at the start of the show, and I must apologise, we were supposed to be having Tony Eccles on with us tonight. He's a good friend of mine. I've known him for over 20 years. Tony is a former chairman of the Merseyside Anomalous Research Association and the British UFO Research Association. He is an archaeologist, and he's currently a curator at the Royal Albert Memorial Museum in Exeter. So obviously somebody who would have been able to comment on a archaeological and a historical and a paranormal level. So unfortunately Tony's internet is being silly today, as I think everybody's is. And just to remind everybody, including that's Brad, it is Sunday, not Thursday. Arron, what other peculiarities have you actually witnessed then of consequence?
Who, sorry, me or
Arron?
Ah, right. I was investigating a place called Charlton House in London. We were there as part of a ghost group. There was a seance going on, a Ouija board session going on in the front room, upstairs of this big place. If you've not seen it, Google Charlton House. It is a magnificent building. And I wandered off and left them to it. At the time when I was involved in the paranormal ghost hunting company that I was like a team leader for, we never got involved in anything. We always left them to it and maybe ran the board for them, opened it, closed it, things like that. But we always left them to it. And I wandered off to another part of the house, and I started talking to one of the regulars who, again, had free reign, used to wander off and take photos. And as we're talking, over his shoulder, I saw the figure of a small child step out from a fireplace, look at the pair of us, and then step back in. And again, it's like Jules was saying, you know, your hair stands up on end. You know, you get that feeling and you get that buzz. And it was like, what the hell was that? So we dashed over to the fireplace, and you could feel the energy. It sounds bizarre, but maybe you can relate to this. When you go into that energy, you feel it. You feel the buzz. You feel the tingle. It was so strange. But, yeah, we just saw this shadowy figure of a child step out, look at us, step back in.
And I take it you can still remember that perfectly.
Yeah, because that was apart from the voice that I heard at Brookfields, that's the only actual, what I would say, physical that I've seen.
Well, when I mentioned earlier about the case that we did in Utoxeter, there was something that we termed a column effect, where we smelt basically the column effect is something that will happen, watch my hand, from the top of the house all the way down to the bottom of the house. Everything's occurring in one particular location within the house. And this was a big pub. And there's a certain smell, and I knew there was a certain smell, but I was not told what this smell was, because they wanted me, obviously, the people who were running this investigation from the team, to know that I'd witnessed it personally. And I went in and I smelt a certain smell. And I was talking to upstairs and I said, I smell right weird smell, totally out of place. What did you smell? I said, Play-Doh. And they all started laughing. I said, what? He went, that's the smell. That's what we're on about. Where did you smell it? It's been smelt on above floor and above floor again. And it was Play-Doh. Now, we've looked into this quite a lot. Apart from Play-Doh, there's only two things that do smell like Play-Doh. A 1970s aftershave based on Play-Doh, and a South American beetle that makes exactly the same smell when crushed. That's not going to be the case, and it's not going to be the aftershave. So in the entire column, it was the smell of aftershave. Now, the other main thing that occurred was we were told, and I mentioned before, we'd done a TV series called Ghost Cases with a Canadian team, Paul Kimball, Holly Stevens, and several others. And we've done one of the filming at this particular pub. Now, we'd locked off a particular room. There was a video running constantly in this room. There was the original door lock, and then there was the bathroom door lock as well. So both these doors were locked. And we were told that blood appears on the shower curtain. So we obviously mock, as you do, between ourselves. Videoed it just for prosperity anyway. One of my colleagues, stop. Look, you need to get to this particular room. So we went to this room, and lo and behold, the shower curtain is covered in blood. Now, we took it away. We had it analysed. It was an arterial splatter pattern. And it was also blood. It was definitely blood. We can't say it was human blood because obviously that test takes far too much expense. But we were able to ascertain that it was definitely blood. It could have been animal blood. It could have been human blood. It could have been anything akin, but it was blood. Somebody still has the shower curtain. We took a second shower curtain, exactly the same batch. We tested them against each other. There was no any differences other than one had blood splattered on it. And you actually watched on the video as well when I haven't got it anymore. I don't know if it's still in existence. The blood appeared as a splatter on there. Now, nobody could get to the second floor. Nobody could get to it. So they're the two main peculiarities of this peculiar place that I've actually witnessed and I'm dumbstruck about, to be honest.
Wow. And where was that?
That was a pub in Utoxeter called the White Hart Hotel.
Wow.
And there was there was so many other things. There was more things occurred. We were able to answer a lot, but we were given too many more questions. And when we tried to follow up on the questions of everything else that was transpiring, unfortunately there was a change of hands, and we weren't able to get in because he didn't want any of that malarkey going on there. But absolutely fantastic. Best case I've ever been involved in mine. And I've been involved. There was one case. There was all sorts of things going on at a family's farm in Cheshire. The mum was having all sorts of paranormal occurrences. The son was having medical conditions which were unexplained. And it ended up having brought in a team from Bath University, or Bristol University, sorry. They did an EMF thing of the entire house. And they found that whenever the cow sheds were put on, there was an old electricity, the transformer was on a post outside the front of the house. And when the cow sheds were put on the lights, there was a massive, massive surge of energy, which was hitting the house, and it was dangerous to the physiology. They shown this all to whatever electric company it was at the time. The electric company changed this particular transformer. The lady stopped having paranormal type events, and the son became, I'm sure it was something like ME, something like that, completely back to normal. He had to actually leave the house because of how bad things were. And when this transformer was changed, he comes back, and there you go. So there's an explanation how things can be misinterpreted. If it wasn't for a inadvertent recording on an EMF meter when somebody was walking up the stairs, nobody would have looked into that. It would have been just classed as paranormal.
Well, that's it.
It was
interesting,
explained, and we're able to help someone.
That's the reason that we used to use EMF meters, not because of ghosts gave off the EMF. It was the EMF that was causing the paranormal scenario, causing people to feel dizzy or sick or see things. So it was the high levels of the EMF that were causing the activity, not an actual spirit, which is why you'd use the EMF meter.
It's the same as your temperature, your thermometers and such like. It's because people report changes in temperature. So it's to monitor if there is a physical change in temperature, which can be registered. I mean, we were looking at infrasound, which is very, very low range sound. Yeah. How that has an effect on the physiology. And a former colleague of mine had all the equipment. A lot was made personally. He spent a fortune getting it, and basically was able to monitor real-time anything infrasound. And again, it's something that people don't think about, or people who claim to be paranormal investigators go out and go, oh, the infrasound's produced by ghosts. It's not. It's people having a reaction to the infrasound physiologically. So many things that you can... I mean, orbs. Let's face it, orbs are a load of balls. Modern day cameras automatically see these things flying across the screen. They illuminate them, that gives it the light back to them. But you got so many people still there out there today saying pink ones are girl ghosts and blue ones are boy ghosts. Good Lord.
I must have a boy ghost, Dave.
Anyway, I'm off on a tangent and ranting there. Arron,
just before I shoot, there was an investigation we did at Oxford Castle. We were down in the basement and we were using something called a shack hack, like a Frank's box, which, for those of you that don't know, is basically just a digital radio that constantly searches the frequencies, constantly keeps going, top to bottom, keeps going on a loop. And the idea with that is that you were supposed to talk to spirit or ask for some sort of a sign, and a voice would be picked up somewhere on the frequency. That was the whole idea. Now, I've always said that this was like snake oil, this is hokum. But one night in the basement of Oxford Castle, we were stood there, and the video is on YouTube. I can link to it. And we had this radio going, scanning, just all you could hear was crackle and bits and bobs. And one of our investigators was challenging a spirit to say his name through the box. He kept saying, say my name. Come on. If you're there, say it, say it, say it. Nothing. Until he said, my name is Steve. Can you say it? And then all of a sudden, the name Steve popped out of this box. And we all heard it, and it's on tape. Now, if that was the name Steve, bearing in mind, this was around 4 a.m, and the radio was scanning frequencies. So at that exact point, the radio needed to hit the right radio station at the right time of night, at the point of a DJ somewhere on that frequency saying the word Steve at the exact point. What are the chances?
I hear you.
It was just bizarre. It just came out, Steve. And you know yourself how a Frank's box works. How, if it is a radio station, you do get the odd phrase coming through and you think, but the name Steve, within seconds of him asking for it, it just, boom, Steve.
Me personally, I'd probably still call it coincidence, but that's me. That's my manner of thinking, and out of years of being involved in the subject. What do you think, Jules?
Shock.
I think something like that, where you initially cover the stories of accountability where it's proved to be fake, or not fake, but misinterpreted possibly, and then you come up with a scenario like that. Do you know what? I challenge. I don't think it can't be fake. The randomness of statistically achieving that result, as Arron said, no. Something of great interest occurred there.
Well, Arron, unfortunately, you've got to depart now. For those of you who don't know of Arron normally, you can find him on YouTube, South Coast Detecting, and he's also got a Facebook group. And if you are looking to have a look at his book about Chichester. It's called Haunted Chichester and Beyond by Amberley Books. I'm sure if you just pop Arron Weedall Paranormal into a search engine, you'll find that, no doubts.
Amongst other things, yeah, probably.
Nice one, Arron. Very pleased to meet you, mate.
And you, Jules.
It's been an absolute pleasure as ever, Arron. Obviously, we'll be in touch in the near future because I'm not asking you to do it every week because you'll get bored. So semi-regularly, we'll have Arron on as a co-host. So again, thanks, Arron. It's been a pleasure. And with Arron leaving us, we will be introducing somebody else. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Dawn Chipchase, also known as Digger Dawn. How are you?
Hey, Dawn.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me on. Bye, Arron.
Great. Are you well?
Thanks for having me on. I mean, this is something that's really close to my heart. Hi, Jules.
Hello, darling.
I've loved hearing those stories. I've loved hearing those stories that you've been saying. Paranormal and some things I've experienced since I've been a kid. And I've never been one for, having all the equipment and things like what you guys have been saying about the EMFs and everything. But since being, I'm probably about 6, I've had the most weird experiences ever. And I grew up, and through all that time, I sense things all the time. I can go into rooms and I like it or I don't like it. I can hold things, like finds. I know somebody was talking about it before, but I can find things, and some things freak me out, and other things I want to hug them for ages. Like sometimes it doesn't have to be jewellery; it can be a coin or whatever. But these are things that I've always been like. I mean, I went out today actually, and there was one. I went doing one of my walks, looking for World War II buildings, and to get there, I had to walk up this old train track. Now, this old train track, there's one little spot. I mean, now it's just a dirt path, and it's got 2 banks with trees on. It's just it goes on and on. But I get to this exact one spot, and I am terrified. It's like something on the bank watching me every single time. I mean, it stops me going on the walks because I've become so... it's really frightening. And I don't know what it is, but I feel like somebody sat there watching and they're not a good energy. They're not a good energy at all. And I went in these old bunkers as well today. Well, not bunkers. They were like air raid shelters, I think. And I got a bit freaked in there as well. But, on the other side, I can go places and I feel hugged. Now, I don't know whether I've always thought I'm a little bit psychic or spiritually aware or whatever you call it. I don't know what you would call it. But I've been like that all the time. I think that's why I don't like crowds as well. I mean, I can go into Asda and that, and I pick up people's energies and soak them up like a sponge. And, if it's bad energies and they're all stressed like Christmas, I can end up feeling like rough at rest of the night. Anyway.
But are there any actual...
Do you want me to stop talking for a second?
No, not at all. You've actually had some experiences whilst metal detecting, and ones that we have to see your arms and facial for.
Yeah, well, the one that was most surprising. I mean, sometimes I can go into a field, and I immediately don't like it. And I've said to Kev before now. I said, Kev, I don't like it in here. I mean, there was one field. Kev was pulling silvers out left, right, and centre. His friend had found a gold pocket watch in it. I mean, it was a good field. I couldn't go in it. I just couldn't go in it. I didn't like it. But there was the one that I remember the most, which was quite frightening, really, is I was melted. It was about 2 years ago. It was around about now this time, actually. It was about 2 years ago. It was a lovely day, really, really sunny. And I was out with Kev. And I didn't have a care in the world. I was having a lovely time. I was metal detecting, pulling out George III's like usual. And I was on this particular target, and I was looking down at this target, not thinking anything, of just enjoying my day. And I felt this thing rush at me from the back. I felt the energy of it, and I felt the sound. The only way you can explain it would be like as though it was like some sort of rabid wolf or lion, that sort of size. And it come flying at me from the back like that. It went, "Roar!" In my head. I dropped my detector and turned around like there was nothing there. Not a thing. And I was terrified. Kev was like in the distance. And I looked at him and he was just like, there's nothing. And I honestly, I freaked out completely. I was absolutely freaked out. I had to move and leave that field. I couldn't stay there. Whatever it was, didn't want me to be there. Now, people on the videos kept saying to me, oh, perhaps it was a bird or something. It was not a bird, I'm telling you now. It was something really, really not good. It really didn't want me to be there. It was horrible. Freaked me out. Still freaks me out when I think about it.
And I did enjoy the actions. You do tell it better with your actions. you did warn me that.
It was, though. I felt it come from the back here, and it went as though it was going to hit my neck and bite me or hit me or something. I don't know what it was. It was horrible. It was horrible, Dave. It was really horrible.
Have you ever had any other peculiar experiences in the field?
Yeah, sometimes I just feel like I'm watched something. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm hooked. That's the only, like I can go places and feel like I'm hooked. So I think my paranormal things are not always negative. There's, sometimes the good things.
Yeah.
But, there's lots of places that I feel like I'm hooked. But that was the worst one while I've been metal detecting, definitely by far.
Well,
I'll always remember. In fact, I ain't been there since. I don't think I'll go back.
Don't blame you, Dawn.
We were talking about intuition. We were talking about intuition earlier in the show, and I'm the opposite to most people like yourself, Dawn. I'm not a non-believer. I've just been involved in it so long that it became second nature, let's call it. But still, to this day, I am 100% certain that one day I will find something whilst metal detecting. May not be a hoard, but it will be something of consequence that will be recognised as something of consequence. Be it a ring, be it a something of a relic of consequence. One day I will find something of consequence, and I know that. Obviously not at the moment, but intuition tells me that one day something will. Do you have any intuition whilst in the field? I've got to go and dig there.
Massively. I mean, if you watch my videos quite consistently, I mean, there was when I found that gold actually last year. I especially had a few weeks. Well, I have it all the time, but I said to the camera, I'm not going to say there's silver in here today. I'm going to say there's gold. And I said, because I just had this feeling, and I went, and the next signal was gold. And it's when I'm editing my videos sometimes with the intuition like that, I think, oh no, what am I going to do? People are going to think I've planted it, because I've actually just said it before. I've said it a few times. I've gone and said, oh, there must be a spill of silvers in here. Gone to the next hole, and there's a spill of silvers. I mean, I do that constantly. You ask Kev, I do it absolutely constantly. And I do get a bit freaked by it because I think, like when you're watching YouTube, what it's like with YouTube, some YouTubers like, like plant stuff and stuff. But I think, no, people's going to think I've done that. And they haven't. It's just sheer sort of something that comes in my head. And then it happens.
I just saw something peculiar out the corner of my eye. It was his bloody e-cig glowing.
Oh, yeah. It's not an orb.
Oh, it's not.
Oh, it's a boy orb. What have I got?
It's funny listening to Dawn. It's just so true.
But I do have like really strong intuition. But I've always been like that. I'm quite a strange. But I can go in rooms and go in buildings, and I've always been like that. It's something that's very close to me out all the paranormal, but not because of. And I have seen quite a lot of different things. I mean, the strangest story I went once is that I got this thing in my head to go to a spiritualist church. Now, I didn't know why at the time, but I just kept having this thing in my head to go to this spiritualist church. So I looked one up, and I found one. It was in Littleborough, which is near me. Anyway, the day I was supposed to go, it snowed really bad, and I couldn't go. So I was a bit gutted. So I thought, oh, well. So I looked in the newspaper, and I found this other one. which was in Haywood, which is near me as well, on the Saturday. So I thought, well, I'll go to that one. So I drives up and the parks on this Iceland car park opposite the place where I'm going. So I could have just looked like a shopper. And I parked there. And there was these two women that kept staring at me out of this car. And I thought, what are they staring at? Anyway, one of them comes out of the car, comes over to me, and she said to me, are you going in that spiritualist church? So I said, yes. She said, I know you are. She said, we do. There were two spiritualists that used to go around, and they said that somebody had told them or something or other. And then they said to me, do you want to come and do training because you've got a lot of abilities? So, it didn't cost nothing. It wasn't like no scam. So I went up to their house, must have been like every Wednesday for about, well, it must have been for about 3 or 4 months, doing all this meditating and doing these different things of being able to, you know, like contact spirits and old things and all that, which I naturally did anyway. And it got to a certain point, and I started seeing people in my house, and I've become so scared. I actually rang them up and said, ain't coming no more. I mean, I was seeing people. It was a bit scared. I was scared, and I think once you get scared, you can't see anybody. But it was a bit too much for me. I think I just shut myself off from it. But yeah, I've always been very like that.
Well, we've got somebody else coming on the show now. I've just had a message on Facebook to say that Nick West is waiting to come on.
Right.
Nick, I think you mentioned him in a comment on Facebook, but I think Nick's going to come on now. Now, his connection might not be great because he's in Spain, but good evening, Nick.
Hi, how are you?
Evening,
Fantastic.
Nick.
How are you?
Hi, Jules. Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Nice to meet you, and
Hi, John.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Hiya.
That's all right. Pleasure.
So please tell us about your experience.
I've been detecting for about 50 years now. So it started when I was 10. In 1982, I decided to take myself off to the Ardennes with a friend and start detecting in the Ardennes. Back then, it was legal to do it. You could go anywhere, any battlefield back then and detect. We decided that we wanted to actually detect this one particular area, which was about 9 kilometres from any road. So we spent a day walking there, set up camp, did a bit of detecting, found some nice bits and pieces, got the campfire going, and went into the tent and went to bed. Woken up about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, when it was still dark, the sound of tanks rumbling past the tent.
Wow.
Yeah. we thought it was logging the guys who worked in the forest.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, we better get out and see what's happening. So we got out the tent and there was bugger all there. Absolutely nothing. But the sound of these vehicles kept coming. And it carried on for about 10, 15 minutes. And both of us just stood there looking at each other, thinking, what the hell is going on? But as the vehicles got nearer, you could hear voices.
Oh, there we go, voices.
And that really freaked me out.
Did you look
because,
into
like
the
I
site?
said, we were 9.
Did you look into the site
I did,
history
and it
about?
was yes, it was actually one of the main routes that the German army took.
Wow!
On the Battle of the Bulge, and it was freaky because we stayed there for the rest of that day detecting, and we found bones. We found human bones.
Yeah.
So we thought that's enough now. We buried the bones, marked it, and went back and reported it to the police. Now, the police told us, okay, you have to come with us and show us where it is. So we did that, and then they drove us back, dropped us back into town, and we thought, right, it's time to have a drink. So we went to this bar and we're sitting there talking to each other. And this little old man came over and said, "You two have just seen the Germans, haven't you?"
Huh.
And it was, sorry. He said, "You've been in the woods." And I said, "Yeah, we've been in the woods." And he said, "That's where the Germans were." Just getting a cup of coffee. Thank you.
Whereabouts was this? Was it in Europe or in?
It was in the Ardennes, near a place Jules might know it, a place called St. Vith.
Yeah, I've certainly heard of it.
Yeah, and it was scary. It frightened the living daylights out of me. My mate would never go back. He stopped detecting. He would not do it again. Christ. He just said, "That's enough. I've had enough." And the air, it got cold. It got very cold. And this was in the middle of summer. It got very cold. And the noise was horrendous. It sounded like they were going right past us. It was loud. And I've never experienced anything like it.
Were there any noticeable environmental differences? Coldness, breeze, anything like that?
And I've been detecting for, like I say, apart, this was horrendous. When we heard it, when we were in the tents, and we came out of the tent, honestly, we thought it was loggers, the guys coming to chop trees down. We thought it was like great big tracked logging vehicles. And we thought, shit, we're in the way. We're going to get run over. Yeah, I was only 22 at the time, and it was like, we're going to get killed. We're going to get run over. And we got out of the tent and there was nothing there. And like I say, we were 9 kilometres from any road in any direction.
Which is a similar story to one that I'll be bringing up.
It was one of the main routes. It was one of the main routes that the SS took.
Wow!
So you've heard of King Tiger, Nick?
Yeah. 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 More than likely. But I live in a 500-year-old farmhouse. And there's nothing, no ghosts, nothing. Mm. And that's the only time I've ever experienced anything like it. And like I say, that day we dug bones. And it really was freaky, very freaky.
Now, one of the Scott DeBay's just put on Facebook, for those who are interested, you've actually got a Facebook group, Nick, called Metal Detecting War Relics. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. We're nearly 5,000 members.
I've just added myself. We actually have
great.
We've actually got a fascinating article on our website, ArkMDMag website, from a chap in Greece, and he lives near a battlefield there, and some of the finds he's made there. I'll point it out to you on the group in the near future. It's some fascinating war relics that he's got himself. So, well, Nick, it's been it's great having you.
As soon as this lockdown's over and I can get out and get some bits and pieces, I'm starting up a YouTube channel myself. So, just for war relics.
If you give myself or Luke a nod, we'll be sure to add you to the playlist on ArkMag TV.
Lovely. That'd be great. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great having you, and thank you for sharing that tale with us, Nick. It's been great.
And you, Jules.
Take care, mate.
Yeah, if ever you go there, don't stay overnight. Bye.
I'll come with you.
Too right, Dave.
Fascinating tale again, Jules.
Absolutely. What a lovely guy. Lovely guy.
Very much so. Now, I've got, as I said earlier, we've got a couple of articles that have been sent in. The first one, I know I have to share the screen now. Unfortunately, it stopped sharing before because obviously the world and its in its entire stupidity at the moment is not allowing us to do technologically what we want. So, can you see a church yet?
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
I can see it.
Fantastic. This is Shotwick Church in Cheshire. I know it very well. This is a good friend of mine, Alison Smith, who's an archaeologist, BA with honours. She wrote a number of articles for us. We went on a university site visit to interpret the adaptations and changes to Shotwick Church in Cheshire. We walked around the churchyard. There were about 18 of us. I was in a group of 4. As we walked back to the church and came out the other side, there's a grouping of several tabletop gravestones amid some aged trees. It was a sunny day, and I would say spring, summer, so the light was quite bright. As we walked to the front of the church again, there was a man, very similar to our tutor, standing and sort of leaning with both hands on the top gravestone with his back to us. He had similar clothes on to Howard too. I remember stood looking, and we all said, "What's Howard doing?" Then we heard his voice and walked towards us from behind us. We looked at him and looked back at the gravestone and said, "You were just over there." He said, "Well, I'm here now," and laughed. We all looked at each other and we all said, "Who was that then?" So he ran and looked round the churchyard, and there was no one else there. On the lane outside, he had completely vanished. Next up, Scott DeBay and Kimmy. Whilst detecting in South Wales, Scott and Huntress Kimmy of Dirt Diggers UK were in an abandoned 16th century stone mansion ground. It was built by the family member of the King of Wales at the time, and Oliver Cromwell was known to stay there as well while travelling. The land was 4 miles away from any other house or road. The only way in was an overgrown horse and carriage path deep through the woods, which we had to hike to get the permission. It was literally in the middle of nowhere. Scott and Kimmy were a few hours into the hunt when a figure appeared in the distance during daytime. With just seconds to reach for his camera, Scott hit record, and this is what he ended up with. So a little bit of video footage now. Hopefully you're able to see this and it's playing okay. So, hope you're. Did you see all that footage? Did it come through okay?
Yeah, fucking heck, that was mental, that is.
Was a bit peculiar indeed. Now, obviously, naysayers could quite easily say it was somebody there that they didn't realise. They should have shouted over to them. But Scott and Kimmy believed that they witnessed something paranormal, and we're not people who will go against people's beliefs. So, peculiar. Very.
Definitely looked it to me, that was weird, that was.
He looks very bent over, as in a very, very bad back sort of thing as well to me from a distance. But very interesting. So thanks to Scott and Kimmy for sending that video and article, and to Alison Smith as well. Now, if we jump on to the the Big Metal Detecting Podcast Facebook group, we'll be able to go to the image that I set out at the start of the week. As you can see, can we see it?
Yep.
Brilliant. And we'll scroll through. Yes. So, I had a conversation with Dawn. Martin Wood didn't get back to me. Nick West actually gave his information in full. Scotty DeBay with his as well. Steve Pettican, I wanted to get to this. It's not a ghost story as in the field, but in his house, sat in a chair, a black American Civil War soldier with his rifle and sword. Very weird. Only saw it once in 2009. Oh, look, there's us. So I asked him was it in Wales? And he said, because obviously he'd said an American Civil War soldier. He said, yeah. I mentioned it to the ex-wife that night when she got home. And she said that hits her guardian angel. In her former life, she was a soldier in American Civil War and saved his life. It started off. I was washing the dishes and I seen something in the hall way by the front door, which was reflected in the kitchen window. I was looking out. I went to the hallway into the living room. It was nothing there, so I came back to the living room and went through the doorway. It went black and got cold for a split second. Walked into the kitchen, round the corner into the dining room, and he was in the armchair about 3 to 4 seconds. He was just looking at me. He had all the Civil War uniform on with a sword and his long gun, hat and big black trench coat. So when I turned my head and looked back, he was gone. Very creepy. So there's all the tales that we have that's come in. He also added in the chat room that on one of his videos, if I can find it, he actually videoed somebody's head coming out of the cellar. I think I'm right in saying that was quite up the top. Dave, I forgot about the head looking at me in the cellar. It's one of his old videos in an old farmhouse. So thank you all for sending that information in. I think we need some more information and stories from Jules.
Right. For some reason, Dave, your voice has gone quite faint on my phone, so I'll do my best. One has sprung to mind. Again, it involves an aircraft again, and it was featured in the national press. This involved about 25 years ago. Friends of mine were excavating a Dornier 217, which had been under a munitions line. It crashed, obviously, during the war, shot down by anti-aircraft fire. And because it came down on a munitions line, obviously that munitions line had to be repaired as quick as possible. So the bodies have gone down, the engine's gone down. That's no interest, level it, lay the train track over, get the munitions rolling again. So colleagues of mine dug this, or friends of mine, were involved with the excavation, I say about 25 years ago. And in the process, the first day or something of the excavation, it was now a deserted railway line. They found a few bits of aircraft, so they pinpointed the crash site with wartime photos. And a middle-aged couple turned up and started just looking around. Obviously, you have to be a bit careful with ordnance and the possibility of bombs. But they weren't spoken to rudely, just went up and asked them, what, did they see the aircraft come down? And thereon transpired probably one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard. The couple eventually, after a couple of days, started to say, well, they said very sad news that their son, I can't remember how old he was, 20, 21 something, had committed suicide at that point on the railway track. But all my friends were sort of thinking, well, what's it got to do with the air crash? But it transpired a most interesting scenario on this one was that from the age of, I think I'm right now, I may get certain factors wrong, from the age of about 6, their little boy had been able to speak almost fluent German. It just arose over a period of months. And then the little lad would get really irritated watching war films by saying, they didn't have that in 1942 and that uniform is wrong. Anyway, they just put it down to the fact as he was interested in it. Couldn't explain the fluent German. And then he started getting very depressed. And he said that during the war, he'd been a board funker, which is a radio operator, on board a Dornier 217. So they questioned him further about it, and he took them to the crash site. And he said that he gave a specific name of the gentleman, which I can't recollect. My colleagues checked the records, and, this guy was there. So how would this young child or get into a teenager know without access to any records at all? Anyway, he was convinced towards the latter stages of his life, he was convinced that he had been a German radio operator on this particular Dornier 217. And sadly, he actually committed suicide exactly where it had crashed on the railway track. Now, when we excavated, or say my colleagues excavated the plane, substantial human remains were found, including the radio operator that this young lad claimed to be. And ensuing from that, they managed to trace the families in Germany, obviously the German War Graves Commission, etc. And the family sent over a photograph of their son who had died on board this Dornier. And it's like a twin. They're absolutely spitting images. And that young lad also died on board the Dornier, aged exactly the same as the young lad who committed suicide. You know, it's just remarkable. It was published, I believe, maybe the Mirror or the Telegraph covered it 5-10 years ago. When you see the photograph of this German Luftwaffe crew member and this young lad who committed suicide, they are the same person. Absolutely same person. And that, to me, is fascinating. It's got so many angles for the paranormal that, you know, and they categorically, they have no need to lie. You know, and they actually said, we've come here today where our son committed suicide to see maybe the body of who he claimed to be being recovered, and it was. Probably one of the most remarkable, strangest incidents. In Britain, looked the spitting image of this German guy, but then again, he claimed to be him. You know, is that a case of a burnt-out spirit just plopping into somebody else and going through the same things? And sometimes the bridges break down, and the people who maybe, I don't know if want of a better word, use that deceased spirit again, it's not quite right, and they can't handle it. And you know, just too many coincidences there by far. You know, probably one of the most intriguing accounts I've ever come across.
That's something I don't think anybody could even begin to explain.
No, I mean, there are no loose ends to it. This young lad claimed to be that German radio operator and was. I don't know how it happened. I really don't. But it did. There was no mistake. They looked absolutely identical, died at the same time. And that young lad killed himself exactly where the Dornier had gone in, and you could never have known. Nobody alive today, apart from specialist researchers, would have known where that Dornier was.
What do you think, Dawn?
I think that's incredible. I mean, I remember watching a TV programme with a little kid that was very similar to that would believe that he'd been born in an island in Scotland. And he was convinced, and he kept saying he wanted to go there, and he described all the house he lived in, and they actually took him. He was only about 6.
Yeah,
and
I remember that, Dawn.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, same sort of thing.
Yeah, same sort of thing.
You know, maybe, I don't know, I'm not religious in any capacity. Sometimes I wonder if there were so many, call them what you want to call them, souls ever made. And when the world overpopulates, you know, when an old man dies, that soul gets used into a newborn baby, and the baby may die or it may live on. And sometimes the bridges between each of this usage aren't quite made right, and a little bit of the past leaks through, sometimes to the extent that the user of that, I don't know, energy just simply can't cope with it, and it's just not meant to be. I mean, that young lad who committed suicide, you know, he you know, I don't know, he just wasn't supposed to be, you know, beyond that age. But absolutely amazing.
Darren Dootson says on the news feed that boy saw the programme, and the boy could speak Scots Gaelic as well, and obviously never been to Scotland. Crazy. There's been multiple cases of people going under past life regression to find out more about the similarities, what you're talking about, similar cases, and during past life regression, they've been able to come up with all sorts of information that they shouldn't have access to, really. It's a fascinating field.
I mean, I think all of us, I think all of us sometimes have a connection with a certain sort of era, don't we? I mean, you know, a lot of people, some people like this era. I really like the 1930s. And I love the old cars, the clothes. I mean, I watch all the old black and white films. I don't watch modern films. I've got a real connection with the 1930s. And I watch these things, and, you know, and I don't know whether I've got some connection with there. But, you know, most of us have, like, you know, some people love medieval things, don't they? And I think that's some sort of subconscious attachment to something.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Mad as cheese. How the world is. As Jules says, you know, it might be a case of a soul doesn't get. Let's look at Beetlejuice. The souls went out of the house. They went into another dimension, another realm, and when they came back, it was 20 years later. The house had been sold, etc., etc. Is it like that in the other side? I'm not saying they'll go to a waiting room for dead people, but you know, is there an occasion where they do turn up 20 years, 30 years later and are confused? I mean, there's also historically some fantastic tales. There's a place in York where a Roman legion came through the house, through the cellar, and because the cellar was raised, they were still at the same level that they actually walked at originally, so all you saw was the top half of the body. I think it was a plumber, actually, and the plumber witnessed this, explained it perfectly. They passed through the cellar, and all you could see were, I don't know, midriff up, because the cellar floorway had been... So they were walking in exactly the same place as they did 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, and then today, the floor's level, they're still walking the same path. Marvellous. And there's so many more tales like that. Are you still with us, Jules? You haven't moved for about an hour. Jules is stuck, Dawn.
I seem to have lost you guys. I think the phone might have...
We can hear you, Jules. We can hear you.
Run out of power. So I'm dreadfully sorry. I'm gonna have...
Well, Jules, I know you're not there anymore because it's been cut off, but it's been an absolute pleasure as ever to have you on the show. So it's Darren Dootson, Dawn. He says Sutton Hoo was discovered after the landowner had a vision of a Saxon burial procession. That's fantastic. There's a video, Dawn. Kev Marchese pointed this one out last night to me, but there was another one I sent him. It was about a church in North Wales where I'd been involved in investigating it for, not obviously with the church's say-so, but it's, you know, you can go on the grounds at night, etc., because there's a public car park, blah, blah, blah. And we done some filming there with the Canadian crew in ghost cases. It's called Shocklock. And Paul is desperate to come back to the UK because of the things that him and Holly witnessed. Now, they'd never been to the UK. They didn't know the history of the church. They knew nothing about the church. But part of this episode, I'm actually stood with Holly and she went, I've just had a really, really weird experience. I could hear horses, but there's nothing there. And one of the things that people report is the Brayton funeral cortege coming down the lane, horse-drawn carriage, etc., etc. Did she witness that? Paul also witnessed. He was looking at he was sat in the tower of the church. It's a very, very old St. Edith's church, it's called. And there's a bench at the bottom of the tower. So he's looking out down the graveyard towards North Wales. And he states, because in my second book, which is still waiting to be published, I used part of his book where he's wrote up about this. And he said, a void opens in the sky. He said, just a black void opened in the sky. It was like you'd see another dimension opening. He said it was like that. He can't explain it. It's all on the TV program. But I also was with a colleague who had a very profound human experience where he went past a certain place and he stopped. And he said he just started rambling about, there used to be this over there, there used to be that over there, there used to be the other over there. And I'm looking at him like he'd gone out. We went round to the back of the church We weren't filming, we were just discussing. Now, there'd actually been a massive thunderstorm just before we got there in the middle of summer. So the atmosphere was charged, let's say. His daughter ran round the church. Just run round the church for us so I could ask him about what had happened. And where we were situated, we could see two corners. Obviously, there's four corners to the church. Sorry, we could see three corners. The one there, and one there. So there's one corner. She went round one corner, and immediately after going round one corner, she came out directly around the church. What should have took her 30, 40 seconds to do, because she must have been about 7 or 8 at the time, took a microsecond. It was absolutely mind-boggling. So this particular church, now one of my friends and listeners to the show, he's got permission on the field adjacent, so he's asked me to go with him, and we will when lockdown's finished, to this particular place. Absolutely fascinating. Any other little tales, Dawn?
Not really. I mean, mine are just all like I say, because I've been experienced things like this since I've been a kid. They're not something I sort of shout out about all the time. It's just, it's like I say, wherever I am, I can be going, it can be any time of day, it don't have to be night, and I can just, I either know people are there, or I can smell things, or I can feel things, and I can hold things as well, like with the old jewellery and things like that. And I get feelings of things. So when I find metal detecting, something like I said before, I can dig a penny up, and it might just look like some old grotty penny, but I can get really strong feelings off them sometimes. I don't want to let them go. I want to throw them. It depends. So, my sort of things is like that, really. I mean, I'm quite just sensitive to stuff.
There's an interesting comment by Lee Brady. Why do we see spirits of people and animals but not dinosaurs? Imagine that. Do you know that's a question I've always asked? My first one would be the Loch Ness Monster. Could that be the ghost of a dinosaur?
Well, yeah, it could be, couldn't it?
Alternatively, whatever fuels the energy to create something paranormal, i.e. an old man, a Civil War person, a Roman, how long does that battery life actually last to be able to recreate that? We can look at the sandstone theory, where it's something that's the stone something's occurred with an energy of the stone, where it's recorded an instance, because we know water can contain memories. But we all know about all the water stuff. But what makes the playback? What is the energy that feeds the playback? It's fascinating.
It's an interesting thought, that. I mean, with paranormal, people see I don't see Romans and them sort of things. I mean, I'm just a very feeling person where I just sense stuff all the time and I see outlines of things. But you're right about that. I mean, why don't we see dinosaurs?
Millions of years. What provides the battery?
It's something I'm going to think about that tonight. I'm going to sleep thinking about that.
If you think of the amount of people who've had cryptozoological experiences, things that they can't explain, like Loch Ness Monster, for instance, there's many things that people have suggested cryptozoologically that they've seen. Is it just a ghost? We don't know.
We don't know.
Julian's come into the comment. He's sorry he lost internet on Lisa's phone, so he had to sign off. Love doing this. Good luck, Dave. Love you, Dawn, and good luck to everyone. Best, Jules. So thanks again, Jules, for coming on this evening, and thank you, Lisa, for allowing him to use your phone.
Yeah, and I'll see you soon, Jules, at an event once we get out of this lockdown somewhere. I'm supposed to be in Holland today,
In Holland? Oh, is it? What was this weekend? Is it the Garrett event?
Yeah, it was a Garrett event, and I was invited to go, so I was supposed to go Friday. So it's been it's been bad this weekend, really, like with the lockdown and everything, especially when the weather's been so beautiful. I was thinking I could have been in Holland.
until this afternoon when the rain came.
Oh no, it's not rained up here. It's been lovely. I've got a suntan here. I don't know if you can tell, but I've been suntanned.
I've had rain. Do you know, Dawn, as well, I done a video the other day. A video with my face actually on it, would you believe? Because you know how much I hate doing videos. I received a Nocta Macro through the post on Friday. So I did a brief unboxing video because obviously we can't go metal detecting. So I got the Simplex, which says simple in the title, and we know I'm simple. So I'll discuss that more on Thursday's show. We haven't got a guest lined up at the moment. I've got some work to do this week, but we will have a guest on Thursday, and I'll discuss about the new Simplex. But I actually done a video.
It's meant to be a great machine. I mean, it was something that's funny. I mean, I don't know if you know this. Well, you probably do, don't you? But Garrett's bringing out a new machine called an Apex.
Yeah.
And we were laughing today on the internet about all the machines that have come out recently. And you've had the Orcs, and then your Simplex, you've got Apex, and they've all got an X on the end of the name, haven't they?
What about the Vanquish?
Oh, apart from the Vanquish, yeah. That one spoiled the little run.
Well, that starts with a V and it's near X in the alphabet, so that'll do. Well, Dawn, thank you as ever for coming on the show.
It's all right.
I think we'll wrap it up now. Where can people find more information about yourself, Facebook and YouTube?
Well, you can find me on Digger Dawn Metal Detecting on YouTube. A minute, obviously, because of lockdown, I can't go out, but I'm making videos. I'm doing. Luckily, I live in a place with lots of history, so I'm doing videos of my walks and things. You know, of all fell down buildings. So it's going quite well, actually. And my metal detecting group, Digger Dawn Metal Detecting on Facebook, and Digger Dawn on Instagram. If you want to follow me anywhere, look at my daft pictures.
Now you do realise, on my behalf, you're going to have to go to that creepy place with the someone looking at you and do a video there now, don't you? I challenge you.
I was there today. I've actually filmed it, Dave, and you'll see it on the video if you watch it. I'm in this one place and I get completely spooked out and I have to leave. I have to leave straight away. That was today.
I'll have to have a look at that.
It was in a World War II. Because this place where it's a beautiful place. It's called Healy Dell, and you've never seen scenery like it. But because it's so hidden in this big, like, what do they call it? Where there's a river at the bottom, like it's a very, very hidden place. In 1941, they built an ammunition factory there, and it filled between 1941 and 1943. They filled 136 million bombs. So they were 20-pound bombs and 25-pound shells. And they hid it, and it was in there, so they didn't know where it was. It was this ammunition factory. So it was right in the middle of the trees in this wood. You would never know it was there. I mean, if the Germans had dropped a bomb on it, the whole of England would have probably blown up. But because it was there, they had all these secret buildings, these air raid shelters and these little lookouts. So that's what I went hunting for today, you see, to try and find the remnants of them. And I did find them. And so I went in one of them, and that's where I was getting a bit freaky. I had to just leave.
I've just actually Googled the Healy Dell while you were on the screen, and it's got all the Fairy Glen and the Fairy Bridge and everything.
Yeah, I went to the Fairy Glen. It went all up there. I mean, this one place, it's got everything going for it. I mean, it's a small area. It's only a 10-minute walk from my house. But first of all, you walk up the old steam track where the steam train was, and that was built like 1880. That's where the scary bloke is on the side. It's got the best viaduct you've ever seen. And then I went down to the Fairy Glen, and then I went looking for all the World War II stuff as well. And I had a look at an old mill that went over. It was called Old Mill in Thruch, which is Anglo-Saxon. And that's how I've got an Anglo-Saxon accent, actually, if you don't know. Old Mill in Thruch means the old mill in the Thruch. And that was built in 1600. And I was down there as a Diggy was well excited down there. I don't know what he was sensing, but he was loving it. It's like that. Come on, Diggy.
Be all them bones buried there.
Fantastic day.
Excellent. Well, have a look over at Rob Random saw Claggy detecting the Fairy Glen.
Rob, well, he's done it as well. Yeah, I was down there today looking at it. It's a beautiful place.
Claggy. I know what he means.
All right.
Well, anyway, again, thanks, Dawn. It's been an absolute pleasure. For everybody who's listened tonight, thank you very much. I hope it's give you something to think about, or if not think about, actually come to somebody and tell them your tale of something that's occurred, because I know it's very hard for people to discuss what's occurred with them. Manly men and what have you, we don't do things like that. But, you know, people would love to hear the story. We love to hear your stories. I know it's totally off the normal manner tonight by doing a paranormal show, but we hope you enjoyed it. And thanks, obviously, to Dawn, who's gone like that. Might not. Oh, camera's died, so it's just me. Thanks, Dawn, anyway, for coming on. Thank you to everybody who's listened tonight, all the new listeners. You can find us normally, as Luke's put at the bottom of the screen, Thursday at 8 p.m. We will be back to detecting, back to normal. We will do another special show. We're talking with Mark Beecher of Detectable, and we've got another potential special lined up in a couple of weeks where Scotty B and Kirst and Kieran from Finder Field will hopefully also be on. Thanks to Jules for coming on, to Arron Weedall, as ever, to Dawn, to Nick West for coming on as well, and thanks to Alison Smith and Scott DeBay for adding their stories into the show also. Pleasure as ever, and hope to see you again this coming Thursday. Thanks to Luke in the background and Laura for keep poking me in the ribs on Messenger as well. It's been a pleasure, everybody. Good night. And I went over to show them.
Sorry, it's DJ.
I think this is what people or toy shop. A little bit too about the situation. I think the you actually been involved
I'm Dave D, and you're watching XP Team USA.
Hi guys, Arron here. Now if you've got nothing else to do, and I mean nothing else to do, absolutely nothing else to do, why not pop over to YouTube and check out South Coast Detecting.
Sorry, it's DJ.
I think this is what